Alright, hello everybody, Jurassic Player here. And today I'm going to be showing a sort of tutorial on various ways of making a background in top screen and bottom screen. Um, First off, we're going to explain the top and bottom screen. The top screen has three options. You have a full image, um, 1024 by 256. That is the full image size that it has to be. So you cannot have it smaller than this image. But the actual viewable image that you will actually see on the 3DS is going to be 1008 by 240. So as you can see here, I have a transparent part right here, which is not going to be seen by the 3DS. And then in this part, which is 1008 by 240, is the viewable part, which is why I have the background here. So that means do not use the full screen, use only the section that is told. Otherwise, you're going to have cropped off images and you're going to be like, why? And you will never know until you ask. Now, the next one is 512 by 256. That is for a static image. 64 by 64 is for a tiling image. The alternate one is for the secondary alternate image, or for the secondary tiling image. And I have an example of that right here. As you can see here, I have this tiling image here, which is the first one. I set it as top. And then the tiling one, which I set as the bottom. The top one, not top alternative, will be animated. It will actually move in a diagonal fashion going downwards. Or not diagonal fashion, but no, yeah, diagonal fashion. Diagonal fashion going downwards, and colors don't particularly matter too much of these. You won't actually see literally like anything in terms of colors. It's more or less shapes. And of course, you have these little extra little things that you could do. You can remove the background image and show only the animated one. You can change the opacity a bit, or the gradient, the color. It takes a lot of fiddling to get it to how you want. At least it does for me when I was checking it. But it's alright. It's alright. The white gradient is more or less a negative image or positive image taking from the background. So as you can see here, if I use white gradient, the foreground tiling images take on white versus taking on black. I don't know how to explain it. There's a changelog which actually explains it a little bit better than mine, but you kind of have to know what he's talking about to really understand what it is. Like, I get it, but my explaining sucks. Anyways, that's all I'm going to say about tiling ones. Bottom screen, you can have a scrolling screen, or you can have a animated screen or a static screen. As you can see here, same size as the top for both the scrolling or the animated one. And of course, you also have static. Now, cannot talk. The animated screen is 960 by 240. That is because there are only 3 frames, and each frame is 320 pixels by 240, which is the size of the bottom screen of the 3DS. The animation is available in 2 different ways: the page scroll or the bounce scroll, which, as you can see here, it says 1 2 3 1 2 3 or 1 2 3 2 1, and that's just referring to the order of the frames that will be played as you scroll across the bottom of the screen when you're going through all your icons or something. It changes those frames. So here we have frame 1, which ends about here, frame 2, and then frame 3. So if I went with page scroll, it would be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And if I went with bounce scroll, it would be 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. Simple stuff. So different ways of making a scrolling screen. I only primarily know 2-ish, 3 maybe, around 3 I would say. So I guess I'll show those off first. So this is the first way. I used this twice already. I used it on this image, and I also used it on this image, which if the image is long enough, you can take one part of it and shuffle it to the back, and as long as you have something that can break up the monotony, something like this umbrella edge here, or in this case, as with my new Bakemonogatari theme, I have a pole here which I can use to my advantage, and I actually just mirrored the left half over to the right after I removed Senjo Kahara. And so there's that way, which is fairly easy depending on the image. The other method is making something sort of like a montage or a scrapbook, where you have like this is like if you have a ton of images but not really any set idea. So you can use something like a generic logo or something, or maybe not even a logo, maybe something simple like squares or hearts or something. And inside those you can put like the various images that you find on the internet. I tried to keep the artwork the same for a number of them, but sometimes I couldn't find them, or some of the characters were just a little too obscure to have that many pictures. And so this is an option. You can just make this background here scrolling, which is pretty easy, seeing as this is only a nice little checkered pattern. And then slap those pictures in the background. Aside from that, of course, I put a render in the front with some shadowing and stuff to bring it to the front rather than with the rest of it. And the last way is to straight up make almost everything else. So the entire layout I decided on, made myself. I took wallpapers from somewhere on the internet. So this wallpaper in the back here, this orange one, this green one, and this blue one. I found the renders from some person somewhere, and so I slapped those down as a foreground one, and then a secondary one. And then I tried to keep them in the same places for both of them, around the same sizes. And then I had this brush here, and I wanted something to border the top, and so that's what I put here. And because they were slanted, I had to put this break in the middle, because I wanted a break in continuity, so that whatever happens here is not really something you care about. You just don't notice it as often. Like if I put these right next to each other, it would be really weird. But I broke continuity right here, and then I use these 3 colors in particular because they're sort of similar to a tricolor sort of color scheme. So if I look at the color wheel, you can see here I've got orange, green, and blue, which are sort of, apart from each other. if anything, it's more or less a what is it called? Split color scheme, wherever it is. There's actually a term for it, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. But anyways, yeah, I pretty much did a lot of the layout. So I made this nice little ribbon. I put a brush on top of it, made the circle, put another render on top of it. I actually had to render this out, and this one, but pretty much simple stuff. The only thing I really had to worry about was this edge right here, and I couldn't do any transitions. I couldn't think of anything, so I just put a little bit of a shadow here, and that I just consider that as my transition. I would say to always have some sort of transition, some way of transitioning, and keep some sort of pattern or something between your different parts. If you don't, it does end up turning out kind of odd. Like this one has kind of peculiar cuts everywhere, and like for this part in particular, you don't really notice that there's a cut because of how dark it is between the two, and all the cuts are just kind of sporadic, and then it's just kind of awkward. That's about all. Now I guess I'll talk about how to make some of the scrolling images. And the way that I've done it twice already, so this way. And this is mostly because I have a file where I documented almost all of the steps that I used. So if we go and hide all of these layers. Alright. So this was the original image that I started with. It's a nice picture. I like the picture a lot, actually. And originally I was thinking of making it scrolling because I like making all my themes scrolling, but I was thinking of making it scrolling by just having this section and this section. Unfortunately, that wouldn't have worked because this railing is diagonal. And eventually I would have to have some way of making it go back down so it can match, or it can meet up with this section, which would be way harder than it should be. I eventually figured out how to solve this by simply rotating the entire thing, because this railing is actually really straight. So as you can see here, I put the two together and it's literally a straight line. But I wasn't thinking about that in the beginning, so I actually tried to resize it big enough so that it matched the screen, because the source image was actually too small to fit as a scrolling, so I maxed it out a little bit to meet the 108 pixel requirement. And then I erased Senjo Kahara's top body. The hair came over this way and stuff like that, which is why this looks kind of funky. After doing that, I cleaned up the railing a bit. I just did some simple rectangle here. Oops, dropped something. I did a simple rectangle, and then I just grabbed some colors from this side and from that side and put a gradient across it. And then I gave a little bit of a test to see if I can clone one of these railings on top of her, so I could erase her. And then I began erasing her body. And so at this point is where I learned that I could have slanted this, and it still looked relatively good. and so that's when I flipped it. I compared it because I had this fairly nice erased picture already, and so I was like considering if this was good enough, and added some viewing templates to make sure that it would all fit, and I wouldn't have to like work on making like a huge amount of the image or something like that. And then after that, I went ahead and erased the section that was, of course, within the viewable port, which is why it only goes up to like here. And so I erased all the way down, and it looks not too bad, which is why I continued on. I added a little bit of variation to the top right here, just so it doesn't look exactly the same as this. And then I completely erased Senjo Gohara in this one. I left a bunch of crap like unfinished because this was in the middle of it. And then as you can see here, it's really dark here, even though on this side and on this side it's pretty bright. And so what I did was I flipped the image and put it right next to it so that I could copy this section upside down and move it over here. And so I did that, and I blended in a little bit of the edges all around it, and then I put my railing on top of that and checked to make sure that it would match. And I did use that breaking continuity thing again right here, so it's not exactly the same colors or anything like that. And then I finished it up, and at this point I realized that I didn't really want to fiddle with the background picture as much as I did, and so the sections that I could keep from the beginning, like any sections around the umbrella and certain parts around here that I originally replaced, I replaced them with the old image, and then from there I cleaned up the rest of it all around so that it matched the rest of the actual image that I have, and it matched the inserted image that I put in. After that, I had these put together so that I could see what it looks like, and all I had left to do was make it loop. And as you can see over here, the railing here was one of the issues that I would have to deal with, and of course down here the little leaves. But that was about it. And so I finished up the pool really quick. I had a couple of leaves. I didn't need to go all the way down because my viewport, of course, doesn't go all the way down. And then I put these two images right next to each other so that I could see the actual part that I was going to need to fix. And I pretty much fixed it. I went ahead and I did the gradient thing again on this side and this side. And with this fixed, actually I should explain something a little bit before that. To get to this point, I had to change the railing here. So what I was doing was I just copied from here and moved it over a pixel or two, and I did the same thing with all of these railings. And then each of these ones are around 17-16 pixels each, and these ones I needed to match up with this side. And so what I did was I wanted it to line up in the middle, so I had to shuffle these over to the left as well. And so these ones are also like 14 to 15 pixels each when I moved them. And then after that, I was able to merge them nicely, and the size isn't too off. And then I copied over what I did and put over to that side, and I just put it down so that from here to here it loops. And one of the things that I want to mention is what I was using to clean these up and remove like the seams was a heal tool, which is a plugin on GIMP. Um, Photoshop has that as like the spot heal tool and the patch tool. I tried it. I attempted it on like the part here, but I actually wasn't satisfied with it. I mean, over here. So most of the stuff that I actually did with Photoshop and tried out, like all the patching healing tools, I was like, no, it's not good enough. And so I actually use GIMP for most of this, even though I have Photoshop to fiddle with. But that's just because probably I use GIMP a lot more often, and so I'm a lot more used to it. But what I wanted to say was that there's a way to add some variance to, like, right here, where both this side and this side are mirrored, essentially. And what I did was simply make a funky shape. Just some sort of strange shape here. And then from there I just did a little bit of this. I'm not even selected on the right layer. And then just do something like that. And then it'll generate a different sort of layout. And then from there you fix up any oddities that you find. Like this here you could probably erase, and you could do it a couple times if you want to, but that's not really anything I care about right now. This is actually good enough for me. But after that, I selected the section that I got, and I cut it out, and this is what I ended up with. And as you can see here, it loops. The edge right here and the edge right here match up. There's some plants that go all the way down. This is cleaned up a little bit so that it still is there. And then there's a little bit of variance on the top here, so it's not exactly the same. You want to try and keep that. You don't want it to be exactly the same when you do stuff. But that was how I made this. Alright. Actually, I can just show with the this one. Alright, so after that's done, I split it up. The screen in between the two is, I think, 90 pixels for the old 3DS. The old one, at least. I don't know about the rest of them, but I think I got that number from somewhere. And one of the things you can do with the bottom screen is separate the UI elements from the icons. So as you can see here, there's a little bar here, and then this sort of glassed look, which separates these buttons and stuff from my icons. Normally, I consider doing this on bottom screens that have something that is eye-catching, more so than anything else. So, like, if we look on most of my bottom screens here, all three of these are animated, by the way, so they're all 960. Alright, so this one had the animated Chitoge and Onodera, which their animations aren't exactly subtle, but they're a little bit subtle, especially Onodera's. She's just got her little arm here waving back and forth, and then she blinks, and then her little drops, water drops or sweat drops, kind of fade off into the distance there. And then Chitoge has a similar sort of thing. She stomps on her key and has these little wiggling things moving up and down and blinks. I consider that pretty distracting. And so what I did was I separated it with this orange bar that you see here. Similar thing was done on here. The background was an animated background, and the top and bottom are also slightly animated. There's a little bit of a sheen that goes across, and so I had those ones also separated. But the last one, there's only the animated H's on a checkered background. There actually isn't very much to it, and so I left the top and bottom actually off of that one because they weren't really needed to, because there wasn't anything distracting, like extremely distracting on the bottom screen, so I left them off. Similar here, this kind of goes along with the top screen, which is why it's fairly distracting and alluring and eye-catching combination. So I put this wonderful little border thing. In this one in particular, I wanted to keep the background viewable, which is why I only made it this glassy sort of look instead of completely wiping it with a different color and covering a lot of the detail that's behind it. It's kind of your decisions whether you want to have these top bars or not, how you want to have your top bars look. Hell, the whole thing is up to you. It doesn't really matter. But that's how I do my stuff. So if you want to do it the same way as me, that have at it. I don't give a shit. But yeah, that's how you make scrolling stuff. At least some of the ways. I don't know really any other ways because I don't make that many themes, but these are the three that I know how to make. So if anything, at least you have that. But that's about it. There's not really much else that I could say. It's always nicer to have the top screen have more eye-catching elements rather than the bottom screen. The bottom screen normally I would consider to have something less eye-catching, like background scenery or scenery where the cast is more along the lines of just part of the background and not in the forefront, like smiling at you or doing some sort of pose or something like that. More or less living life in the background, something like that. That's normally what I would consider a pretty good background screen. That kind of thing is alright for me. Even though if you do use like a background where the cast is like in the background, it's kind of hard to have it animated or scrolling unless you have a really big image, but it's possible. Top screen, I like eye-catching top screens, ones that aren't too covered with a whole bunch of crap. So like this one is actually pretty nice to me. And as you can probably tell, I normally don't have too much in the front. I have maybe a single render of the character, and that's about it for all of my themes. And that's it. That's actually it. For the top screen, for the bottom screen, that's all I got. So thanks for watching. I hope you learned something. This has been about 30 minutes or so, 35 minutes maybe. And I hope you make good themes. I really do like having a lot of scrolling themes. I like seeing them. I like having both the top and bottom screens animated. I like how they aren't static. They aren't monotonous. They're animated. They have some sort of life to them. And so that's why I do what I do. And that's why I hope other people do it. And that's why I spend so much time explaining the shit that I am explaining. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you'll watch whatever I got next. And yeah, have fun making more 3DS themes.